Hi, I'm Meredith, and I'm here to share with you my story about how I came back to a small town that I grew up in that I never thought I would come back to. How I thought I was a failure by coming back and that I couldn't be successful, and kind of where I am today, and share with you that just because you come back to a small town or where you grew up doesn't mean that you can't be successful. So, growing up in Chillicothe, I think it was always kind of assumed. With not only myself, but I think kind of my circle of friends and with my family is, you're going to go to college, wherever that is, and you're going to go and do great things in big cities, or I'm going to start over. So, growing up in Chillicothe, which is a pretty small town, it was always, I feel like it was just assumed that you would graduate from high school, you would go to college, and then you would go on and live elsewhere, and that kind of defined success, I thought. When I went to college, I declared a major right away in fashion merchandising. So therefore, to me, that equaled being in New York or some large city and doing these fantastic things that, I could never achieve in Chillicothe. And I remember growing up here and, as we got older and we were more high school age, we would all just talk about how there was nothing to do and we were always so bored and we just couldn't wait to get out and never come back. So I went to college and graduated and then got a job still in Ohio, in Cincinnati actually, and worked there for a few years. And I started dating my now husband at the time, and he was actually living in Chillicothe because he had also come back. He had gone away to college and lived in other areas and then came back to Chillicothe to help his family's business. And he also thought that would be short term because he thought he was just coming back to help and then he would go on and do what he wanted to do as well. So while we were dating, I lived in Cincinnati and he lived here, and I made it very clear to him that I wasn't coming back, and I was very adamant about that. A lot of my friends were doing their thing, whether they were still in college or they had graduated and living in other cities. And to me, coming back to Chillicothe, in my mind, was just unheard of. Like maybe it was below me. Maybe I thought, I wanted to do bigger and better things, and that just wasn't something I could achieve here. And I'll never forget the day Andy, my husband, told me that he was going to be buying his family's business. My reaction was probably not the best. I was very upset. Instead of being happy for him and congratulating him, and that's a big deal. His family's business has been here since 1853. So it was a big deal for him to do that, and that was a big decision. But selfishly, I was really upset because I knew that if we were going to get married, Chillicothe was it, and I was going to have to move back. And to me, it wasn't so much that I was upset that he was doing that, but it was selfishly like, I know I'm going to have to move back, and therefore I failed. Like, what am I going to do? I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that nobody has moved back to Chillicothe, and I'm kind of the first to migrate back. And it was all very selfish, I think, looking back. But obviously, I wanted to marry Andy, and that's what we decided to do. So there came a point where I feel like I had to embrace it. I got a job in Columbus, so I was commuting from Chillicothe to Columbus, and working in the retail industry. And that was going okay for a while, but it got pretty wearing because of my hours and the commute, and I just didn't feel like we were spending enough time together. And so that's when I kind of transitioned into real estate, and really brought me back to the community and really helped me to reevaluate why I am here. Because as a new real estate agent, you've got to kind of start building a business on your own. So therefore, you've got to start networking and making connections and getting involved in the community. Like, those are things you need to do as a local business owner. So I feel like that's kind of was my first push to put myself out there and to get involved. And honestly, I was getting involved and meeting people that I had never met before. Having grown up here, I assumed, you just assume you know everybody and all that, but I didn't. I was meeting people that I had never met before and making connections of people that were all new friendships. So I feel like because of the career change that I chose, and getting into real estate, I therefore became very involved in my community. And I feel like that's where everything changed, because I knew we were never leaving, as far as I knew or know that we're not going anywhere. And so I really had to make something of it. And that equaled getting involved in my community. That was volunteering. Learning about other organizations in the community where I could serve on boards and really just volunteer my time.
At what point or points did you start realizing that you didn't fail by living in a small town?
I think when my friends started talking about coming back to Chillicothe, and I started having those conversations, and as a real estate agent then at that point, actually starting to show them homes, that's when I realized that I probably wasn't going to be alone, that people were seeing,
No.
Trying to think about where to make it more concise. So there came a point that I was starting to have conversations with my friends who were thinking about moving back to the community. And that's when I think things started to turn around for me, and I realized I wasn't a failure, that a lot of times people will filter back and see the good in the community and see it from a different perspective. I think growing up as a kid, you're just kind of in this, and you haven't experienced enough in life to realize what you really have. And I think it came a point where we were all kind of looking at our town differently as an adult. So being able to have those conversations with my friends and talk to them about buying a house and moving back was so exciting to me. It really kind of brought it all together and made me personally feel better about my decision, that this is a great community. There's a lot to be had here, but it's just about maybe where you are in your life and your perspective, and appreciating that for what it is. And so my involvement in the community, I originally got involved in the community because of my business, and I wanted to build a business, but that turned out to be really a genuine interest. I wanted to do more, and I wanted to do things that I was really passionate about, and not just because. And so once that started snowballing, so much has happened over the past 15 years since I've been back, being involved in different projects, specifically our downtown. My husband and I chose to live near our downtown. We actually never left our street. Our first apartment was on this street. Our second apartment was on this street, and then we ended up buying a house on this street, which I never thought I would do. We really love the location of where we live and kind of that lifestyle of being able to walk downtown. That has then turned into being involved in renovating buildings downtown, specifically a building for a children's museum that I helped start, and just bringing other residential and businesses to the community. So it's become more or less a passion for us now and a genuine interest in being involved in our community. So, through all of that, and then also having children. We have 3 children, and we live in this community with our friends and our family, and that's very important to us. And I have a lot of friends that aren't from Chillicothe, that don't have family here, and I see the value in having our family close by as we raise our children, and how important that is for us and how valuable that is. And my husband and I have definitely had the what if conversations. If we didn't live here, if we chose to live somewhere else, we like to travel a lot. So there's a lot of great cities that we really like. But I always say, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't want to live anywhere else right now. I really love our community. I really love being involved for our children. And, I really do enjoy kind of walking down the street and knowing everybody you see and saying hello, and just that small town feel as an adult and raising children here is something that I really learned to enjoy and appreciate.